The two LA County Sheriff's deputies ambushed and shot while in their squad car continue to fight for their lives. And now there's video of those critical moments as they tried to get help.
They've just been shot. Two deputies, moments after a brazen assassination attempt on their lives. The surveillance video obtained by Inside Edition shows the female deputy lending assistance to her 24-year-old partner as they wait for backup. The deputies were parked in their patrol car in the Compton neighborhood of L.A. when the shooter opened fire from behind, then fled, escaping in a Mercedes-Benz driven by an accomplice. The two deputies were rushed here to St. Francis Medical Center, where doctors went to work to try to save their lives. But outside the ER entrance, a handful of protesters showed up and, according to witnesses, tried to barge their way into the emergency room. Several of the men were heard shouting they hoped the deputies would die.
Marking 2,000 days of the Saudi-UAE-led war in Yemen, thousands of Yemenis took to the streets in the capital, Sana'a, to condemn what they described as a campaign of death and destruction by Riyadh and Abu Dhabi. Demonstrators chanted slogans in support of the Houthi group as they condemned a recent spike in Saudi attacks on Sana'a. They say such an escalation is proof that Houthi attacks against Saudi targets were making an impact. It's not just Sana'a, which is hit by indiscriminate coalition airstrikes. On Sunday, 4 people were killed and 4 others injured in a Saudi airstrike on a residential area in Marib. It's the city considered to be the last remaining stronghold of the UN-backed government, but the Houthis say they have already captured 10 out of its 12 districts.
An Israeli settler has been handed 3 life sentences for the murder of 3 members of one Palestinian family. Amiram Ben Uliel threw a firebomb into the home of the Dawabshe family in 2015, killing the couple and their infant son. Their elder son, who was 4 years old at the time, is the only survivor. Ben Uliel received an additional 20 years for the injury of the surviving child.
The court also ruled that this was an ideologically or racially motivated attack. It's almost certain that Ben Uliel will serve out the rest of his life behind bars. That is exactly what the family had asked for, pretty much down to the letter. We've spoken to the lawyer of the family, and he says that there is also a large compensatory settlement as well, the maximum available under Israeli law of nearly $300,000 US.
He was jailed for just doing his job, say protesters who gathered for the 4th Monday in a row, calling for the immediate release of journalist Khaled Rarani. Among the 100-strong crowd were activists, lawyers and journalists, including some who have been imprisoned themselves. The Algerian journalist will be hearing the verdict of his appeal on Tuesday. The 40-year-old journalist was arrested in March of this year after covering a Hirak demonstration. Hirak is a peaceful anti-government protest movement in Algeria. He also criticised his country's political system on Facebook. Those 2 actions earned him 3 years in prison. Reporters Without Borders hit out at the decision.
This sentence is outrageous in its arbitrary, absurd and violent nature. It is clearly a legal action against a journalist who is a credit to his country.
This 4-alarm fire ripped through an historic pier near Vancouver last night. Firefighters say the blaze at the Pier Park in New Westminster could linger for days. The pier decking has to be lifted so firefighters can access what's burning underneath. Toxic smoke from the pilings of the pier is hampering their efforts, and nearby schools and businesses have closed because of the poor air quality. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Also in BC, a CN train derailed, causing about 60 cars to pile up in a creek bed. It happened early this morning on a bridge near Hope, about 2 hours east of Vancouver. A number of cars carrying potash ended up in the water. An environmental assessment team is now at the scene. No one was hurt, and the cause of the derailment is under investigation. For the second time in just over a year, vandalism has shut down a popular BC tourist attraction. Early this morning, while the facility was closed, a cable was cut on the Sea to Sky gondola in Squamish. 30 cars went crashing to the ground. The RCMP are investigating. The cable was cut for the first time in August of last year. That cost millions of dollars to repair, and the facility had only reopened in February.
Pakistan's last-ditch effort to avoid being blacklisted by the global anti-terror financing watchdog, the FATF, has also failed. A joint session of Pakistan's parliament was convened to pass two bills that are part of Islamabad's commitment to the FATF. However, the dates have not been decided, which means that Islamabad hopes to get off the FATF radar, and those hopes being realized seems distant. The terror financing watchdog will decide whether or not to blacklist Pakistan. The country is already on the grey list. Earlier, the Pakistan government held a meeting to get all the opposition parties on board for the proposed legislations related to the FATF. The government said that the bills are necessary for getting the country out of the body's grey list.
Government sources here say Germany is to take in around 1,500 migrants left homeless by a fire that destroyed Europe's largest refugee camp on the island of Lesbos. This comes amid pressure on the EU to find a solution for the some 12,000 people displaced and mostly still living outside in the open. Greece has been urging the migrants to move into new shelters on Lesbos, but many fear the situation there could be worse than before.
At the back of a long line of hungry people, waiting has become part of life on the island of Lesbos. At the front, aid workers hand out bags of food. Since the Moria camp burned down, migrants have been camping out on the streets.
The ANC will pay back the money. This is for costs incurred in ferrying the party's delegation to Zimbabwe on an Air Force jet. The delegation visited that country to meet members of ZANU-PF. On Friday, President Cyril Ramaphosa gave Defense Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula 48 hours to give him a full report. The presidency has confirmed it's received the report, but the DA wants that report to be made public so it can be scrutinized by South Africans and Parliament.
Possibility of life on any planet other than Earth has always intrigued the scientists. Finally, some observations suggest that this possibility can't be ruled out just yet. Astronomers announced on Monday that traces of a rare molecule known as phosphine have been found in a heavily acidic atmosphere of Venus. The researchers are now claiming life has been detected on the second planet from the Sun, but the observations suggest that at least the possibility of microbial activity in the upper layers of the Venus's atmosphere well away from the planet's inhospitable surface. Phosphine molecules found on Earth are primarily a result of human industry or the actions of microbes that thrive in oxygen-free environments.
It was one of the greatest moments in Sydney's history, a shining light on the harbour city as we welcome the world to our doorstep for the Sydney Olympics. It was indeed the greatest games ever, and to celebrate 20 years since that moment, the Olympic cauldron has been relit.
The Olympic cauldron, the centrepiece at the Sydney Olympic Games, and today 2 young athletes followed in the footsteps of the great Cathy Freeman and relit the flame. It was 20 years ago today when the best ever games kicked off. Freeman given the honour to light the cauldron, and those watching would remember those heart-stopping moments when the cauldron appeared to get stuck. Because of COVID-19, Cathy is stuck in Melbourne and missed today's marking of the milestone.